What's going on, everyone? I am SystemCheck66. Welcome to my channel, and if you're familiar with my content and my channel, you'll know that I've been covering Welcome to Racoon City for a fair few months now, very long time, and right up until the release date I was covering it, and I could tell that things were wrong with it. It was going in a bad direction very early on, but I still gave it the benefit of the doubt. And there were times when I was really hopeful and quite sort of like happy with what I was seeing in terms of leaked images, things like that, trailers. But I've seen the film. I watched it last night, a late showing, and I've got to be honest with you, it isn't that great. It's not that good. Let's just be honest. Everybody that said it isn't good, you know, they're 100% on the mark. If I knew this was going to be bad, why did I pay for a ticket? Because I wanted to see this car crash with my own eyes. I avoided Mortal Kombat, but Resident Evil, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, so I was like, I've got to see this with my own eyes, you know, because I could enjoy it even if someone else doesn't, and it could be a guilty pleasure. I don't even think I can treat it as a guilty pleasure, if I'm honest with you. It has some great kind of homages to Carpenter films, you know, it borrows quite heavily from John Carpenter type horror films. It has a little bit of influence from obviously zombie films and stuff like that, and a little bit of grindhouse and B-movie sort of vibes, and that stuff I really liked. It's more horror influenced than the older films, definitely, but at the same time, it falls short of hitting any mark, to be honest with you. There's not a lot to take away from this and like as a Resident Evil fan, as a die-hard Resident Evil fan. The parts that I like the most are the parts set in the mansion, the Arklay Forest, and the RPD. Those little moments where they're in the mansion and the Arklay Forest are really cool. Like from when the STARS helicopter is flying over the Arklay Forest and they enter the mansion, I thought it was really well done. And I like that stuff. I like those parts. Stuff that happens in the mansion is a little bit sort of like a bit mediocre, definitely. But if you're looking at the styling of the mansion and the Arklay Forest, they got it quite close. The rooms in the mansion aren't a one-for-one. Definitely. The main foyer is smaller, 100% in scope. But even though the rooms aren't one-to-one recreations, they still look like the mansion. They still resemble the mansion. Even the piano room where Wesker and Jill go, you know, they enter to open a secret passage that has like the black and white tiled floors that you see in like the mansion's dining room in the original game. And it's just stuff like that, like where Chris and Richard are covering rooms, you know, it looked like the mansion. So suits of armour, all the rest of it. It was cool. I liked it. This is the thing, I'm not a fan to the point where all the rooms don't look exactly identical to the rooms from the game. I was happy with how they recreated the mansion and the RPD when we get to see it. The RPD is a lot different. Like the main hall is very similar but smaller. Again, it's shrunken down, and that's fine. Then you have the weapons locker room, which was cool. It was fine. And then you get like Irons' office, which is completely different, but I was cool with it. And the STARS office, which is completely different, but I was cool with it. Overall, the set designs and stuff are cool. But we always knew that, didn't we? Racoon City isn't really a city, it's a town, it's a big town. And I was cool with that as well, I was fine with that. Like, originally, Racoon City was supposed to be a Midwestern town, so it just made sense that, you know, they made it a town in this film. So, this is going to be a review that isn't particularly structured, let's just say that. There's been 101 YouTubers out there that have structured their review and talked about the story from start to finish, and then given their good points, their bad points to the film. You know, and I'm not going to do that because we've already had that. Like, so I'm just going to warn you now. There's going to be spoilers definitely throughout this little mini review that I'm doing. It's just me talking about the film and, you know, how I feel about it, my thoughts, you know, and yeah, and just how I would score it if I was going to. So I wanted to start off with things that I like. The fact that they brought it back to horror and it felt like tonally a little bit like the Resident Evil games, the original Resident Evil games, I liked that. The zombie designs were really good. The set designs, like I said before, were really, really good. Some of the score, the audio score, or the music score and the audio soundtrack that backs the film was fine. It was cool. They used this one track constantly, and it bugged me. It was fine to use it like once, but then they carried on using it. It was this very harmonic, like vocal sort of track, and it started to piss me off the more they used it. But other than that, the actual soundtrack and the score and stuff was fine. What else? I liked Robbie Amell as Chris Redfield. I thought he was cool. I liked K.S. Gilderio as Claire Redfield, and I liked the guy who played Richard Aitken as well. Chief Irons was my favourite character in the film. I thought that he was brilliant. I really liked him. He was definitely my favourite character. And when it wants to feel like Resident Evil, it doesn't do a bad job. Like, where Umbrella's killing everybody in the city or the town as they're trying to leave, along with Irons, he's trying to leave and stuff, and the Umbrella soldiers, the little nod to like the Hunk team, they just start wiping people out. I really like that. It reminded me of 28 Weeks Later, where the army come in and start to just like set things on fire, and they kill like the main dude in the film, like he's trying to push the car and they set him on fire. That reminded me of this reminded me of that, like where the Hunk team are just shooting everybody and wiping everybody out. So it had a bit of a rawness to it, definitely, compared to the old Anderson films. There was that raw, aggressive like impact that it had in this film, and I respected it for that. So there are some other good things. There are little nods, like an overturned police car. You see these huge claw marks. But there's also some disappointing stuff as well. So you see these huge claw marks, and you know that hunters done it, or hunters have done it, but you never get to see the hunters. That's one of the bad things about it. So while you're appreciative of the nods and the Easter egg, at the same time you want to see a hunter. So yeah, that kind of sucks. But you kind of know that they're running around the Arklay Forest, and maybe they're in the mansion, but we never get to see any. There's a joke that Jill makes to Richard, which is quite funny, where she says, what would be worse, getting eaten by a giant snake or a great white shark? And that's great, but we don't get to see that. We don't get to see either a snake or a shark, eat Richard. So that's disappointing. Great little nods when they're handled well. We'll get to the Easter eggs that are handled badly. But yeah, great little nods when they're handled well, but at the same time, they don't produce a payoff. And if you're a fan of the game, or you've played the original game, you're going to be very disappointed, like I was. And I knew they weren't going to be in this anyway, so the disappointment was already there. What else? I'm trying to think now. I think that Jill's character evolves later on in the film, but it's a little too late, in my opinion. And I like Hannah John Carmen. I think she's a great actress, but yeah, she wasn't. A lot of the actors weren't given much to work with. The script is. I'm getting onto bad things. We're not going to talk about the bad things first. We'll talk about things that I did like. The lighting is really, really well done. I like the lighting of the film, definitely. A lot of hues of blue, sort of like oranges, just sort of like the darker colours as well, but lit up. So yeah, that was cool. I like the lighting was cool, and it set the tone and the mood for the film, and it was very Resident Evil. I'm trying to think now. How they handled Birkin, as much as the actor playing Birkin plays the same role all the time, I've seen him in so many things, he did a good job with it. Just because he's great at playing bad guys and evil kind of characters, when he starts to mutate and transform, they did a good job with it. The design of Birkin is fine. When the eyeballs were popping out of him and stuff, kind of nasty. I liked it. And the fact that he's chasing Chris around, and I thought that was cool. It reminds me of sort of like the Resident Evil CG films, where they still have a slight bit of intelligence, and so they still sort of, like, I'm talking about the one in the airport, the one that's set in the airport, that one, when that guy gets infected, the brother of the chick that Leon's hanging around with, the love interest, he can still be sort of heard, like, calling for his sister and things like that. And even Birkin does it in the original Resident Evil 2 where, you know, he calls out Sherry's name. So I like that. He was a little bit more humanized, definitely. A lot more intelligent, maybe, than a bioweapon from the game. But yeah, I liked it. Like, or at least, you know, pre-Code Veronica. So I liked it. I like that sort of stuff. The cat and mouse thing was cool. It's over in about 30 seconds, but it was cool. Alright, a minute. We'll say a minute. I'm trying to think of other good things. I like the fact that it's dimly lit and it's dark. I like that. That was cool. It gave me a lot of Resident Evil 2 remake vibes, definitely. Very dimly lit Resident Evil game. So that was cool. And maybe a little bit of Resident Evil 7 vibes as well in terms of the lighting, you know, in terms of how dark it was. So you definitely had those horror vibes there. Definitely. And I think that goes in its favour. Massively. And the zombie designs, for the most part, are cool. There's some great little ideas in there as well. I can see what they were trying to do with the fight scene with the zombies and Chris. They didn't pull it off properly. Like a friend of mine said when I was talking to him yesterday, he said, you know, it's all great having these ideas, but it's how they perform, you know, in execution. And he was 100% right. And they didn't execute that scene in the way that it should have been, you know. It looked cheap, it looked crap, but the idea of it, the idea that Chris is fighting off these zombies, these hordes, or these waves of zombies, and the only time you can see what's going on is the flash from his muzzle, you know, or when he flicks his lighter, or when he pulls out his lighter and he illuminates the sort of like surrounding area around him. That was cool. It was a great idea, but in execution they flopped. And the other cool idea, which they actually did pull off, was the kind of like crazies type zombies that they use in this. If you're familiar with a remake of an old film called The Crazies, it's really good. It's got Timothy Olyphant in it in the main role. It's a really fucking good film, and they kind of do that with the zombies in this, where they're still sort of aware and they're kind of intelligent, and then as time goes on, they zombify more. And I thought that was a really good idea because they all start to go to the RPD for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't realise why they're going to the RPD, but maybe for help or something like that. And as the film progresses, they become more zombified and they start to, like, you know, rot and all that good stuff. So yeah, and some of the zombie designs, or for the most part the zombie designs, were really, really cool. They were cool. I liked them. There's some that look crap, but I would say that they're sort of just before they're zombifying fully. So maybe, you know, there is a reason behind that. I'm trying to think. Good things. It's 90 minutes long, so it's not a particularly long film. So that's a good thing. It could be a bad thing as well in some people's eyes, because they're like, well, it sounds like you just wanted to get through it and get it over. But I'm trying to say that at least you're not sitting there, you know, for like 2 hours, like bored out of your mind, or being able to nitpick and just take things out of the film, and, you know, it stops me from really, really fucking hating this film. So the 90 minutes is a bit of a blessing. And I like the title screen where they use the old font, although it does look a bit crappy when it fades. And the end, it's kind of like an end screen of an older Resident Evil game where it comes up with all the details of what's happened and stuff. That was cool. I think that's the only good things. Yeah, okay, that's the only good things, to be honest with you. It's gory as well. That's a good thing. It's gory. So, not really gory though. I would have liked a bit more, but it is still like bloody, so I thought that was cool. Now we're going to move into the bad things, and there are a lot of them. They had an opportunity to, and you can see this when you watch the film, recreate the first game and have slight differences. So have the mansion slightly more, you know, slightly smaller, slightly more compact, and it would have worked perfectly. It would have, and they could have connected things just in the way that they could have done in this film, which I think it would have worked perfectly. Like when Wesker opens up the secret passage and it goes to the underground, I thought that was cool. That could have been done in a film that was just based in the mansion, you know. But they don't do that. They want to squash two stories together, and that's Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 1. Does it work? It doesn't. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Let's just say that. I thought it was going to be a clusterfuck. It still is a clusterfuck, but not as bad as I thought it would be. It's still a mess. It's still a mess. Like, it cuts from one scene to the next. It cuts from the mansion to the RPD, from the mansion to the orphanage. You know, there's... Okay, we're going to get into it. Like, there's so many moments that are jarring. Like, the film starts and there's this whole sort of like prologue with Claire and Chris, because they're, you know, in the orphanage. Their mum and dad died in a car crash, I believe, and so it's just those two in this orphanage that Birkin kind of runs with Umbrella, all taken from the remake of the second game, you know, and then they experiment on kids and stuff like that. Very cool and very dark and creepy, definitely. Although the acting from Birkin's actor was questionable, but you know, he still pulled off the creepiness. And basically, like, child Claire is roaming around, and she bumps into Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor is obviously an orphan that was experimented on in this continuity, this universe, and you know, they completely like messed her up, and she tries to help Claire and stuff, and they're like friends, I guess. A lot of you old school Resi fans, and you new school that, you know, have a love for the remake of the first game. You're going to be groaning. I know you're going to be palming your faces right now. But yeah, so basically, she like, the film like cuts from, it's supposed to be like a dream sequence. It cuts from that jarringly to Claire getting a lift from the truck driver.
Oh, I also just wanted to talk about this particular issue I have in the film. Kevin Dooley and Rico Marini. Okay, 2 stars Bravo team members. In this, they're 2 piss-taking, unfunny cops, and they go to the mansion because their cruiser gets overturned. That's where the hunter claw marks, you know, are seen. Gets overturned, and literally Kevin Dooley and Enrico Marini are just these 2 cops. They go to the mansion. They're the Bravo team. That's how much this film doesn't respect, in some ways, the source material, while in other ways it does. Those 2 characters are treated with the least respect, and, you know, so those 2 characters are treated with so little respect. They're literally just given the names as like these little Easter eggs, but they are just beat cops, essentially, that go to the mansion. They get killed, yeah, and then Chris, you know, shoots that zombie, that one that's supposed to be from like the first game. Which, by the way, I will say one thing: that zombie looked crap in the trailers and in the stills, but when you actually do see it, as much as it ain't as good as the original game zombie, it is cool. You can see all like the veins in its face and stuff. I like the practical makeup, so you know, that scene's alright. I quite liked it. Like, they recreated it in a decent way, definitely. But yeah, just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention, because didn't like what they did with Kevin or Enrico's characters.
So yeah, so we have Child Claire, Child Chris. Birkin's in charge of the orphanage, which is slightly removed from the remake 2. And Child Claire bumps into Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor is an orphan that they experimented on. Umbrella and Birkin experimented on. I don't think she has the same backstory in this continuity, you know, this universe. But she's still sort of like fucked up and wears a mask and things like that. Claire and her have this weird little friendship, and yeah, and then she kind of wakes up and she's getting a lift from this truck driver from the remake of the second game. Mixed with a little bit of Kendo as well, because Kendo's a bit pervy in the original Resident Evil 2. There's a moment where Claire, you know, is in his shop and he's like, "But don't worry, girlie, I'll keep us both safe." And it's a bit creepy. It's a bit like pervy. So yeah, this truck driver's a bit of a perv, and everything plays out like the remake 2, but with Claire there in the passenger seat. Runs over a zombie disappears, something different happens where the dog licks up the blood, gets infected, and that's actually how the truck driver gets bitten. And I thought that was a cool little spin and a cool riff on what we'd seen already as fans. So yeah, she gets out of the cab after they've run this woman over. The zombie gets up, disappears, and then something weird happens where she's standing and looking into the forest, and the zombie's just there watching her, just looking at her. And then the title, pops up, and it's the old school block font, Resident Evil, from the original games, style font. So I was very happy about that. But then it fades, like I said earlier, and it looks really cheap and crap. Like anyone can do it. It's literally like an auto fade, on the end of it. But anyway, and yes, I use those, and a lot of YouTubers use those, but we don't have the same tech that those filmmakers do, so it's acceptable. Anyway, rather than get into story elements, so that's how the film kicks off, and that's when we get the title. And I was like, they should have just got the title over and done with after that, that intro. It's like they have that intro in the orphanage, and then they continue it, and that's, to me, that was like weird. And I thought after the intro where Lisa Trevor grabs Claire's face, they should have had the title card, and then it should have carried on where she wakes up. Instead, you have the whole prologue, and then it continues with Claire in the passenger seat of this truck. It's very strange. It's very jarring, and the whole film is very jarring from that point onwards. So the structure of it is just messy. Let's just say that. There's some funny lines from Chief Irons. He is my favourite character in the film. Never thought I'd hear myself saying that. He's not really like a fucking weirdo in the same way that he is in the games. Like, he doesn't molest people and all this other shit. Like, he's just a wisecracking chief of police. But it's weird because he knows all these secrets that Umbrella hold, but they never delve into how or why. Like, you hear Claire in the background as Leon's kind of searching the orphanage, and she says, "How do you know all this?" And then it doesn't give exposition. Like, you don't hear Chief Irons talking about it, and that's an issue with this whole film. There's no exposition. Like, we don't get to know anything about the T virus or the G virus. You're just expected to know. Now, for people who ain't familiar with the games, they're not going to know anything, and it doesn't help them. It doesn't give them exposition. Just from a filmmaking standpoint and point of view, you should at least elaborate on the viruses and what they're capable of doing. Just for any audience, whether it be fans of the games that know about it already, or just or an audience that isn't familiar with the original source material. But they don't do that. It's just like, okay, Ben Bertolucci in this continuity says, the T virus and G virus, you don't know anything about. He's talking to Leon. Why would you? They create weapons. They create bioweapons. And that's all you get. And Umbrella aren't elaborated on. They throw the Ashford twins in there, and, it's mysterious, and I thought that was cool. I like that. But at the same time, they don't sort of... everything else, like Umbrella and just everything else, it just isn't fleshed out. And that's bad, to be honest with you. That's bad sort of script writing. You're just expected to know. When they say that they made this for fans, it is literally like they went, let's just roll out any old shit just for the fans. That'll keep them happy. This is how Hollywood thinks, and it doesn't work like that. You have to earn the respect, earn the respect of fans that have been with this franchise since, and it is a franchise, but let's say series. I hate calling it a franchise because that's what's put it in this fucking shit pile that the series is in at the moment. Let's say series. You have to earn the respect of fans that have been with this series since 1997. Me personally, other people as well. So yeah, you didn't earn that with this. We'll just list off bad things. They make Leon... They really screw up Leon and Wesker's characters. Wesker is like a jock American football player. He literally says sorry to Chris at one point. "Sorry, bro, I was out of line." Really? He has a relationship with Jill Valentine. She's like a fucking hoe in this film. Yeah, she's flirting with everybody. She flirts with Leon. She's flirting with Wesker. She flirts with Chris. Everybody. I'm surprised she didn't flirt with Chief Irons. Didn't like that. Did not like that. That she's like this hoey type character. Nah, that's not Jill Valentine in my personal opinion. Claire's just like, oh god, Kay Scudero. She's a really good actress. Yeah, So is Hannah John Carmen as well, like as Jill. So when I see them portraying these wooden, stiff characters because of the script, and I know it's because of the script, it's disappointing. Basically, all the actresses and actors in this film are wooden because the script is wooden. Kay Scodelario is a great actress. You know, she really is. If you go back and watch episodes of Skins, watch Crawl, you'll get that range. In this, wooden. There's moments, I like how badass she is, and there is a moment when she sees the Ashfords, you know, family film or whatever the fuck that was, and then sort of reads that a lot of her orphan, you know, friends and stuff are deceased, and she gets angry and upset, and you can see that emotion and the range. It's not amazing by any stretch, but it's not bad. It's not a bad bit of acting. And Hannah John Carmen, go and watch Ant-Man and the Wasp to get the range of her as an actress. She's great. But in this, they're wooden because the script is wooden. Robbie Amell, he's playing Chris Redfield. Chris Redfield's always been a wooden character. He has. But I think that Robbie Amell, he brought a little bit more of a... I don't know, a little bit more of a charm to the character, and I like what he did with Chris Redfield. Even though I'm a huge Chris Redfield fan, to begin with, I like what he did with the character, so I was happy with that. And Chief Irons is great. He has some of the best lines, some of the funniest lines. He's kind of like the Kano of this film. You know, the guy you love to hate, but at the same time, he gets all the best scenes and the best lines. But yeah, every actor and actress in this film is wooden, and normally they're good actresses and actors. But in this they weren't. So I'm trying to think now. Birkin was okay. It's just the guy playing him plays the same character, you know, all the time. Still, good choice for Birkin. Who else? I'm going to go through the characters. The guy playing Richard Aitken was cool. He was good. I liked him. Brad Vickers, as you can imagine, you don't even get to see Brad in the original game. Like, so yeah, he did what he did. Ben was just weird. He was playing the kind of kooky weirdo guy. I mean, him as an actor, like, it was almost like he wasn't bothered. And I've never seen this dude in anything. And it's like, he wasn't bothered. He was like the least bothered out of any actress and actor in this film. And that I find strange because he's a nobody. But anyway, maybe he knew what he was in for. That whole bit in the... We'll get to that. Whole bit in the cells, we'll get to that. And the most egregious one is Leon. Leon Kennedy. He's made into a bumbling idiot. He is made... Excuse my language. He's made into a... Like, he's retarded in this film. He's retarded in this film. He fires a rocket launcher within close quarters. That whole scene where he fires a rocket and it blows up Birkin and Chris is right behind, you know, the rocket and Birkin, and he survives is ridiculous. Even for a film based on you know, a series that has got ridiculous in the past, it's stupid. Yeah, he can't load a shotgun, doesn't know how to pump one. He's an idiot. He doesn't hear an explosion outside the RPD, a truck exploding, but he hears Irons firing a gun. They basically try to defend casting Avan Johia. I think it's Ohia, or it's not Jogia, it's like Jogia or something. By saying that he was the best fit for Leon. But then they made him a fucking dunce. Yeah, that makes sense. That really backs up your argument. It really doesn't. So, again, I'm inclined to believe that they did this for woke purposes, definitely. And realistically, the script's so bad and the characters are so bland that it wouldn't have mattered who the fuck they cast. That's the truth. So yeah, you know, I'm sure Evan Jogia is good normally as an actor. I've seen little snippets and things and clips where he really does have a range, definitely, when he wants to. But in this, he was ridiculous as Leon. So yeah, there's that. The whole woke thing and people trying to argue with me before, well, he's the best person for the job and the best actor. No, he fucking isn't. They make him into a retard, okay? You know, at the end of the day, they've made Leon into a fucking retard, and he is such a cool character in the games. So yeah, nobody likes that. Nobody's going to like that. No fan of the games is going to be on board for that. That's the truth. If you're a genuine fan of the games, you love Resident Evil 4, you know, Resident Evil 2, the remake of 2, why are you going to be on board for that? Turning Leon into an idiot. And I am someone that was like, nah, we're gonna see if Avan, you know, brings it. You know, and when he does, when he's given moments to actually excel, like when he shoots a zombie and there's all these other things, and the way he delivers his lines is great. Like playing a dumbass, he's actually quite good at, you know. But when he wakes up and he's got the beer and he drinks it and stuff, I thought that was cool. A little bit of characterization there. It's cool, some backstory. But yeah, he again, the actor's working with a bland script and they're making him into an idiot. So what can you do? Okay, so they're the actors and actresses that portray the characters. Like I said, a lot of them are done wrong. A lot of the characters are done dirty. I think next we should just talk about like the horror and how this director, Johannes Roberts, handles the horror and the mood and the tone of Resident Evil. I think that visually, he's actually not too bad as a director. He gets it, visually, he gets it. Sorry, give me 2 seconds, I'm going to have a drink. Yeah. So, he's had some time in the horror genre because he's made horror films previously. And in that respect, I think the film tonally feels great. You know, when it's going for that horror vibe, it feels good. Visually, it looks good. All that stuff that you've come to sort of see from Resident Evil, especially the second game's remake, I think that he nails it. I really do. I think visually, lighting-wise, the score for the most part, you know, the musical score, how dark it can be in the Spencer Mansion, all that stuff, I think he handles just fine. But then you see, that's all good. Like, the camera angles and things are all good, but then you'll have a scene that reminds me of like Equilibrium for some reason, because in Equilibrium, if I can remember right, it's been a long time since I see that film, they have moments where Christian Bale's shooting people and it's pitch black and then the muzzle flash is letting you see what's going on. And in Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, in the mansion, as Chris is running through, I believe it's the dining hall, he's running through the dining hall, it's pitch black and all you can sort of see is the muzzle flashes as he's trying to fight off the zombie hordes and stuff coming at him. And that's cool, like, that stuff where the zombies get on top of him and they surround him, that was all handled really well. It's a bit unrealistic because they're sort of just trying to chomp and he's keeping them at arm's length, so it looked kind of crappy in regards to sort of like how fucked the situation was, like how raw the situation was. It looked kind of crappy that he just sort of was keeping them at bay. They weren't that strong, but I did like the idea of it. I like that they surround him and they kill Richard and they surround Chris afterwards, and I thought that was all right. But yeah, like Richard and Chris don't hear a helicopter explode, anything like that. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of weird because the helicopter crashes into. You've seen it in the trailers, you know, it ruined it. But Brad gets bitten by a zombie. He's playing snakes on his phone. There's loads of early 1990s references or late 1990s references in this film. Zombie bites him, and then it cuts. Like I said, it's jarring. It cuts to, I don't know, Leon and Claire, or it's Chris and Richard, or something like that. And then after that, it cuts back, and the helicopter crashes. And that moment was actually done quite well. The helicopter crashes into the mansion and it slows down and Jill grabs Wesker and they jump out of the way. So I thought that was done quite well, that particular scene. But yeah, it's jarring. It's jarring. So Chris and Richard don't hear that go on. I mean, I could be forgetting things. It could be after Richard gets killed and Chris is fighting the zombies. I can't remember. But nobody hears the helicopter crashing. Okay, and then like a little bit later, you know, Jill says something like Brad's dead. Like, so clearly Chris hadn't heard the helicopter crash. It would have made a big noise, let's just say that, a loud noise. So the moment where Chris is shooting the zombies though in the dining hall, you get to see the flashes and as an idea it's great. Conceptually though, trying to pull it off, you know, in execution, it's handled badly. It's really like the gun. the sounds of the gun that come from the guns in this film are shit, and that sort of like that was a bit jarring. I was like, guns don't sound that great, and the way that it's handled, it just looks really awkward. Let's just say that it looks very awkward. The way that the actor's trying to take on these zombies, and like I said, the idea of it's great. The execution of it is poorly handled. So there is that. I think I said earlier that there's zombies at the gate. There's this, the sort of like, but they haven't mutated into full zombies yet, and they're sort of still talking, and that's handled quite well. The idea of that was great, and they handled that quite well in execution. So that's all right. Yeah, things like the truck driver crashing. In the game there's significance to it. In this there isn't. He gets bitten by the dog. It's creepy that the dog's just sort of watching him and whining, and then he swerves and crashes, and and obviously you've probably heard YouTubers talk about it. He walks into the RPD on fire, and Iron shoots him, and then Leon says like fuck about 50 times, because in this film they love the word fuck for whatever reason. It's just really cheesy and shows how kind of rubbish the script is. So yeah, he says that like 50 times, and then joins with Irons. Now this is where it gets confusing. Like, the structure of this is like, a lot of people watched my review of Resident Evil 8, and they were like, "Whoa, the review's very strangely structured." And I was like, "Yeah, because the game is strangely structured." That's how I feel. Like, if you watch a review of Resident Evil Director's Cut that I have on my channel, or you watch a review of Resident Evil 7 or any other Resident Evil game that's well structured, you'll see a great structured review. But when it came to Resident Evil 8, it could have been just like Resident Evil 6, where it was so unstructured because the game was so unstructured. And so I was going from one point to another, because that's kind of how the game acts. Although not in the same way this film, is portrayed. This film is portrayed as this, trying to cram and squash everything into that 90-minute runtime. That's how it portrays itself. And it gets confusing. So like, me trying to remember what's going on here and here is going to be pointless, because the film is like that. It's unstructured. It just goes from one part to another, and then they're in the orphanage, and another minute they're in this lab, and it's just like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the truck driver, he gets shot by Irons. Leon joins with Irons. They then meet Claire. Can't remember how. Because she's just come from Chris's. She goes to their sort of Chris's house, and then then from there he's like, "Don't steal my bike," and he drives off to go meet the rest of the stars, and then she steals the bike and goes to the RPD. And Claire just keeps showing. That's another thing I hate. Claire just keeps showing up randomly. Like, when Irons is about to be killed by the horrible looking CGI dog. Thank God that the film is dimly lit, because it would have looked worse if it wasn't. But still looks horrible. She shows up and beats it to death with a fire extinguisher. When Birkin's about to kill Chris, she shows up and shoots him with a shotgun. Like, she just pops up out of nowhere, like, and it happens way too much. It's so noticeable. So that was crap. I didn't like that. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, so they kind of get together. There's this whole part where Irons is just like, "You're in charge now, Leon," and he gets in his car and tries to get out of Racoon. That, it was pointless. It wasn't needed. Like, it was just stupid. Like, there's a lot of pointless scenes in this film. I would say definitely that, kind of, because the acting's so bad, they're kind of boring. You're like, ugh. Like, do you know what I mean? That's why it's like the act. You get to see how bad the acting is, or at least how bad the script is. Let's just say that. Another scene that I don't like is where you've seen it in clips and trailers, where the woman who writes it, she tasty on the door, on the glass. She runs in and smashes through the window and goes after Claire. And it's like, Claire says, "Do you need help?" It's from the remake 2, when Claire says to Sherry, and this zombie kid's like, "You need help." It was just like the director took it out of Resident Evil 2 remake and put it in there, and it just has no context, and it doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would a little zombie kid be like, "You need help," or whatever? Like, come on. Yeah, in the game it makes sense. She says it to Sherry, and Sherry's like, she knows Birkin's after her, and she's like, you need help. And then it's like she turns around and Birkin's there. But in the film, it's so out of context. So yeah, it's just, like I said earlier, this isn't a structured review in the way that I'm going to be like, this is, you know, this is what I didn't like, this is what I liked, this scene, going through the whole thing. I don't want to give this film any time than it deserves, talking about the mishmash of ideas and, you know, Frankenstein's monster story that it produces, that it's produced. I don't want to, do you know what I mean? I don't want to give it that amount of respect. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So we are just going to nitpick things and pull it out, and I'm going to tell you what the fuck is wrong with this film. And I'm going to say right now, don't spend your money on this, okay? I paid for a ticket to see this car crash with my own eyes, to see what it was actually like, if it's actually as bad as everybody's saying, because I still have a guilty pleasure video game film, and that is Doom. Also Dead or Alive as well, which is pretty shitty and bad, but, you know, Holly Valance. Big Holly Valance fans, so that's, you know, kind of, but still, it's crap. Like, the Dead or Alive film's crap, but it's a guilty pleasure. But Doom is my all-time guilty pleasure film. Like, you know, it's so bad, but even my friend said, I think that Doom is probably going to be better than this. Because he hasn't seen Welcome to Raccoon City yet. And I told him, like, Wesker's one of his favourite characters. And I told him what they did to Wesker, and he was just like, nah, I don't even want to watch that. Yeah, like I said earlier, Wesker is this he's portrayed as this character. Let's go to Wesker, because I absolutely love Wesker, okay? We've talked about Leon, but I want to go in depth about Wesker. Then we'll move on. Wesker is portrayed in this film as a sympathetic character that, you know, starts to slide into insanity, let's just say that, or into things happening around him that make him a bad person, okay? But he doesn't want to be a bad person. That's essentially how they're trying to treat this character. And he ends up killing Birkin, because Birkin shoots him in the arm. Yeah, so it's not Hunk that take out Birkin. I don't know why they've fucking changed things for the sake of changing them. The whole Birkin death in the games is so much better. It's so much better. It's I don't know why they changed it in this. I don't get it. This is like, there's things in this film where I think to myself, why did you change that? It didn't need to be changed. It's so good in the game. Like, just keep it as is. You clearly had like the Hunk soldiers in the film, but instead they're just killing random civvies. But yeah, like in this, it's Wesker that shoots and kills Birkin. And then Birkin gives his gun to his wife, to Annette, who, by the way, isn't even a character. Like, literally, it might as well not have had Annette Birkin and Sherry Birkin in it. Because they are the definition of background characters that don't add anything to this film. You know, I think Sherry speaks about 2 lines in the whole film. So, Annette picks up the gun that Birkin, that William gave her, tries to shoot Wesker. Wesker says, don't do it. She goes to shoot Wesker. Wesker puts a bullet in her head. And then Sherry hides, and Wesker goes up to Birkin. He's like, you didn't need to make me do this, and da-da-da. And you can see slightly start to go a little bit more insane. You become more of the Wesker that we, well, no, not the Wesker that we know. He really isn't, but some sort of bad guy, yeah. And ends up shooting Birkin in the chest like twice. And then when Sherry picks up the gun, he aims the gun at her, and Jill shoots him. Yeah, and that's when he's like, oh, to Chris, like, sorry, bro, you know, I fucked up, and, you know, they're going to bomb the city. You've seen it in the trailers. Says to Jill, they're going to bomb the city and to leave and get out. And that he wasn't going to shoot Sherry, I think he says. So yeah, they really fucked up Wesker. And Wesker is like a Resident Evil mainstay. Like, when you fuck up... The guy who was in the older films, you know, he was way better. He was way better as Wesker, definitely. I prefer that Wesker to this one. So anyway, moving on, we'll move away from Wesker and the characters and stuff. We've talked about the scenes and how they fuck things up. Like in Resident Evil 2 and in the remake 2, like I said earlier, where the driver crashes the tanker, it has significance. Yeah, it blocks off in the original. No, and in the remake as well, doesn't it? Yeah, it blocks off Leon and Claire, you know, being able to team up. So they go their own separate ways. And it smashes into cars and stuff like that and runs down zombies, you know, in the remake 2. And there's this significance. It's great. It's a great moment, yeah? And in this, it's literally just... The RPD isn't it's not really based sort of in the same place that it is in the original Resident Evil 2 or the remake of 2, where it's kind of, you know, it's hard to explain. It's kind of near this sort of like motorway or intersection, not intersection, but motorway sort of dual carriageway, we call them in England, where cars can pass through and stuff. So the RPD is sort of just situated in this very quiet, remote area. And so he crashes the tanker for whatever reason, and it blows up, and that's, there's no context to it. There's no significance, unlike the video game, you know, where it has that, and that's pretty much every scene in this film. There's a cool moment with an infected crow in the Arklay Forest, which I thought was alright, and at least quite a funny moment, which I thought was actually handled quite well. It shows that, you know, Jill's very trigger happy, definitely, and I thought that was cool. So yeah, it's there's a lot of scenes that just, the itchy tasty thing is as bad as it was in the trailers. A lot of the scenes that I'm talking about, I've already expressed how crap they are in the trailer, like from my trailer sort of breakdowns. So there's nothing you're getting that you haven't heard before. But overall, it just, yeah, it's a Frankenstein's monster. They mash too much stuff together, and it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. The characters are bland and boring. There are parts in the film that are boring and bland. Nobody headshots any zombies, as far as I can remember. They just keep shooting them in the chest, and that kills them. And I guess it's a nod to the games, because when you shoot the zombies in the chest, they can still die from you shooting them in the chest and stuff. But yeah, I would have liked some exploding heads, definitely some you know, decapitations like from the games, but didn't get none of that. The audio mixing, the sound mixing is crap, or at least the sound effects they use in this film are rubbish. So like I stated earlier, the guns sound effects are shit, cheap, sound crap. There's a part where Irons is getting ripped apart by a licker, and he's literally just that's it. Like, let's take a scene from Alien 3 where Dylan takes on the alien hand to hand, and he's like, "Come on, you son of a bitch! Come on, you motherfucker!" And he's, you know, he's like scrapping with the alien, he's holding him from getting to Ripley, and he's like, like screaming, and then eventually, you know, it gets worse and worse as it's ripping shreds out of him. Ripping him to shreds and ripping, you know, bits and pieces out of him, and then finally kills him with the, you know, slices his neck or whatever it does, bites his neck. In this, like, if we take this scene and compare it to that, literally Irons is just grunting a little bit, but when you see what's happened to his corpse, to his dead body, you're like, really? Like, he's had his jaw sliced, so that was taken from the remake of the second game with the police officer you find with his, you know, his jaw that's been sliced, and then his face has been like pushed in. So pretty gory, but yeah, it didn't get any sense that he was actually getting ripped apart. And speaking about the liquor and that whole moment, there's one liquor in the whole film. Literally one liquor in the whole film, and Lisa Trevor kills it. She rips its jaw, like, she basically gets her wooden shackle, puts it in between the liquor's mouth, and she just, you know, rips its jaw in half, sort of thing. And it looked horrible. I swear there was moments where it was actually like the CGI sort of monsters were clipping through each other or something like that. It looked fucking terrible. You know, I like stuff like where it trips Leon up with its tongue and things like that. I thought it was really cool. It was a very liquor thing to do. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's things like having Lisa Trevor then help them out with the keys, and she opens the secret passageway, which just leads to a lift that then descends into the underground, like, lab, Birkin's lab, which also connects to the mansion. So I knew they were going to do something like this just to connect it all together, because it's like only a 90-minute film. But I thought it would have been done better. Like, it's done better in the original film, where it's a train that takes them underground. I thought that was great. But in this, it's just a lift. I was like, what the fuck? Like, the Arklay Forest is supposed to be all the way out, you know, wherever. I guess they do have tunnels that go from the mansion, you know, to the lab. So that makes sense. But like, at one point, they walk into the, you know, into Birkin's lab, into the Umbrella lab, and it's really disappointing. It's literally just a tiny little lab, like, kind of like Lucas's from RE7. but not even as good as that. And I was just going, really? Like, you could have, you've done so well with the set designs, you could have made at least like a cool looking lab. And the rest of it's just your typical like Resident Evil underground, factory type setting, where Birkin's hunting for Chris and stuff. Why is Birkin hunting for Chris? I forgot to even mention this. Birkin raised Chris in a father figure role, and Umbrella paid for him to go to college and university or something like that. So yeah, there's that. There's this weird father-son relationship between Birkin and Chris, which is never elaborated on, because nothing is, nothing's elaborated on in this film. They just throw it in there and then it's gone 2 seconds later. And obviously Claire didn't trust him. They tried to experiment on her and she ran away. She escaped. So there's a moment where Birkin's trying to drive his wife and child out of Racoon, and Claire nearly gets run over by him. And she just looks at him and stares at him. And he stares back at her, and it's like he knows who she is, and then he just drives off. So yeah. And then somehow he ends up in the lab. Maybe I'm missing some parts of it. So there's that. Yeah, this particular song that they keep playing, it's like this like female vocal, like Mr. X type of, the remake of 2's Mr. X theme music. It's like that, the ending, but it just happens all the way throughout the film. It's like 8 times it plays throughout the whole film, and it gets irritating real fast, real quick. I really genuinely just like the mansion parts of the film when they were just walking through the rooms and stuff. I thought that was cool. The Arklay Forest was cool, and yeah, some of the RPD. But it just, I don't know. Like, my mind's run dry now. Now I'm fed up of talking about it. Let's put it this way. I knew it was going to suck the closer it got to the film's release, and I was right, unfortunately, and I didn't want to be. I really hoped I'd be wrong. I wanted this to be good. I really wanted this to be good, like, more than anything else, because Resident Evil, in terms of the game series, has moved away from the old school, vibes of the older games, and story-wise it's gone in a completely like mad direction. And now it's all first person, so I wanted something that maybe could let me relive the. And yes, I can go and play the old games, I know that, but I wanted something that, like live action, that I could relive those glory days. And unfortunately, this just doesn't hit the mark. It doesn't hit the mark. It's really bad. Like, it's really bad. I mean, if I was to, I'm trying to think. Is there anything I need to talk about? Anything more? Anything that I'm forgetting? I've kind of, like I said, I've kind of had spoilers running throughout this little review. But I guess the ending is, it tries to tie into a sequel. It's like a Marvel after credits ending, and it's crap. Like, it's rubbish. Like, Ada Wong's not even in the film. Like, there's no relationship between her and Leon. And she just shows up at the end and she gives Wesker his glasses. There's a scene that's taken from the intro of Resident Evil Remake, where Zombie sits up in a body bag and then gets shot, presumably by Barry, because it's like his magnum. And so they take that and they put that in this film at the end, but it's Wesker. So Wesker opens the body bag, gets out, and like all his muscles and his veins and stuff are popping out. So he's obviously, he's being brought back to life, but it's like he's been given the virus that, I always forget which virus it is, but he's been given the certain virus that gives him superpowers, special powers. And then his eyes, I'm not sure like if he didn't have any eyes or what the hell was going on there, or his eyes are closed. But he crawls into a corner, and Ada says, we brought you back, and he's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm Ada Wong. And he goes, who do you work for? And she's like, I'll tell you in due time. Gives him sunglasses, and then he's like, oh, so he puts the sunglasses on. And I was like really? That's the reveal? Like, that's the twist, that he gets his sunglasses? It's shit. It was rubbish. So, they all, at the end, the biggest thing. So at the end, they fight Birkin. You've seen it in the trailers. They ruined it. Leon, dumbass that he is, uses a rocket launcher in a close quarters environment. Doesn't kill anybody. Blows up the train. And I remember Jill's like, "What the hell did you guys do to this train?" You know, and that's quite funny. I like that line. So yeah, and then they all walk out at the end of the tunnel. The train tunnel is sort of like slow-mo, and this text comes along saying that, you know, what had happened, sort of like Umbrella incident, Raccoon City, Survivor Zero, all that stuff. And I thought that was cool, but basically because it's such a low-budget film, you see the mansion crumbling on itself, which is weird. I don't get what that was. It doesn't explode or anything. It's weird. Like it crumbles in on itself, and then presumably the nuke hits that the government send, and it wipes out Raccoon. But we don't get to see that. We just get to see like the after effects of what's happened from the tunnel, from the train tunnel, and all you see is like a shockwave, and then a cow gets blown away. And I was like, okay, so the small budget, you don't get to see that, unfortunately. We even saw that in the Anderson films, so that was disappointing. So the whole ending and stuff is disappointing as well. Let's just put it this way. I knew it was going to be crap the closer it got to the release date. I watched loads of reviews from people, YouTubers, from American YouTubers, because they got it early before we did in England, because it only just came out on Friday here, and I saw it yesterday. So yeah, those reviews and stuff and those issues with the film hold up. I don't think they should make any more. Don't do a sequel, and I generally think they should stop now with the live action Resident Evil stuff, you know, and even the CG stuff. I think they should just bring it back to basics. Really, I do, like they did with the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's why that game was so good, and that's why I liked it so much. And maybe RE7 was decent as well. But I think unless you're going to get a director and a script that generally, you know, is firing on all cylinders, I don't think Capcom should allow anyone else to make any more live action films. I don't know if Constantine and who else is it? Constantine and Screen Gems still have the rights to make the films. I don't know, but relinquish them or something. Just don't make a sequel to this. It was a massive flop. I've heard it's done badly at box office, and to be honest, I'm not going to be rude. You know, I'm for everybody making some money if they deserve to. You know, but as a fan, I'm glad that it's flopped, because it literally, the Anderson films made too much money. They made more money than the games, and that was depressing. I'd rather the books from S.D. Perry made more money than this crap, because it actually, the first book and the two books that aren't based on any games, they're her own, you know, her own things. They do a good job at recreating, you know, the source material in book form. Yeah, so I generally don't want any more of these, and I'm glad it's bombed. I really am. I think that maybe will, you know, get Capcom to reevaluate sort of the film rights and where they stand in terms of offering up these rights to these film companies. You know, so maybe they can relinquish the rights from the film company, and when it comes to getting the rights from Capcom, they're going to have to try a lot harder and come with better scripts and better directors, you know. So yeah, it's a big disappointment, but I didn't expect anything less. If I had to give the film a score, I'd probably say 5.5 out of 10. The original film, the first Paul Anderson film, is like a 7 out of 10. I just feel like it's a better film personally, even though this resembles Resident Evil a lot more. I would say about a 5.5 out of 10, 5 out of 10 basically. Let's just say that. Yeah, it was very, very disappointing, but and it was a huge car crash, but it's one that I had to see for myself, definitely. So yeah, I can't even say that it. I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure film. That's a hard one. Maybe because I'm more invested in Resident Evil, it's harder to take. It's a harder pill to swallow than say like Doom was. But I do feel like Doom's more enjoyable. Definitely. I feel like this is too much of a mess. That's the problem. And the script is too bad. So yeah, so that's about it really. That's my Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City review, or short form review, whatever you want to call it. Like my thoughts and opinions, whatever. That's what I thought about the film. It is as bad as everybody's saying, and yeah, and I hope they don't make any more. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought about the film down in the comment section below. Have you gone to see it? Are you going to bother? Did you actually like it? Hey, if you liked it, I'm not gonna judge you. If you actually liked it, then tell me the reasons why you liked it and what you thought was good about it. I've given you some of my reasons as to what I liked about it and what I thought was good about it. So you know, but yeah, and if you hated the film, let me know as well. Like, why did you hate it? Why does it suck? Do you like the fact they make Leon into an idiot? I really didn't, but anyway, each to their own. So yeah, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on socials at Twitter at SystemCheck66 on Twitter, at SystemCheck66 on Insta. And until next time, I've been SystemCheck66, and I'm signing out of here. Peace.